Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone, to episode number 49 of CBD Talk Podcast. And today we have Gary Lowe with Cannariginals with us. Gary comes from California, one of the newest and, of course, definitely the biggest rec states in the country. How are you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing awesome, Dawn. Thank you for having me on the show this morning. We really appreciate the invite.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. So just tell me a little bit, what what's the energy right now in California with everything with all the rec stuff happening there?
You know what? I'm going to call it a double-edged sword right now.
Mm-hmm.
In the world of legalization, things have become, for some organizations, they're really accelerating into it. But honestly, a lot of the brands that have been around and have really put it on the line for a lot of years are struggling. I say struggling. I'm going to say our expectation across the community, and I think most of the professionals I talk to would agree that probably 70% of the brands at a conservative estimate that existed prior to legalization may not exist afterwards when it's all said and done.
Wow.
So that's a tough thing for people to see. We understand what's happening, and it takes a lot of resources to become compliant. And it takes a lot of knowledge. It takes just a vast amount of resources across all aspects to be able to really do it right. And it's been a tough industry for a long time with banking being restricted and whatnot. It's been hard for companies to scale up prior to this point. And unfortunately, we do know, in fact, we've already seen a lot of them that have put up messages on Facebook saying we're done, we're out. Mm-hmm. And so that's been kind of tough to see. At the same time, it's a little bewildering when you look at California with the current about 75 to 80% of their communities are now cannabis-free zones. There is no commercial cannabis activity allowed, period.
Really?
Absolutely. We live in Kern County in Bakersfield, California here, and actually Kern County is the largest county in California with zero commercial activity allowed. Bakersfield, a city of close to 500,000, is also thrown in the towel. They have zero activity. So, that, and it's not just Kern County and Bakersfield, it's kind of prevalent across the state in different communities. The larger urban areas are definitely in line and they're jumping on it. That community is starting to develop.
Mm-hmm.
So I see there's a lot of encouragement, and at the same time, there's a lot of angst. It just depends on who you're talking to.
And I do have to say, Colorado had the same, well, not the same, but a similar experience where a lot of the communities were like, absolutely not. And then once they saw the other communities thriving and crime not going up, things like that it actually was a benefit to the community in ways. They started coming on board. So, I mean, we still do have some holdouts, of course, but more and more cities and counties are coming on board as they see the success in the other areas. So hopefully that'll ring true for you in California as well.
Well, I think it will, Dawn, and actually I look at it a lot as a parallel to what's going on a national level. The conversation used to be on a national level of what state was going to be the next state to legalize cannabis in one form or another. But that conversation is quickly changing to what state will be the last state to.
What do you think the last state? Who do you think the last state will be?
Oh my gosh, I think that we're going to be somewhere down in the South, just because adherence to ideologies and some. I'm not talking about secular stuff. I'm just talking about values that have been laid in. Unfortunately, I hate to even drop the name, but there's a leader of the Department of Justice that comes out of the deep South.
Yeah, that's the exact same state I was thinking.
Yeah. So kind of with an A, ends with an A, is probably a good candidate to be the last one on the docket. But it's going to happen, right? And in California, it's the same way. It's which city's going to be last, which county's going to be last. And like you said, out in Colorado, they started figuring it out that this wasn't this big evil presence that's in the community all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. It's this incredibly benevolent and beneficial presence that's always been.
And here's the thing: as it gets normalized, and the stigma is reduced, you're going to have people who know people that this plant has touched in an amazing way. And I think that's what it takes. We can't be hiding in a canna closet. We need to be able to say, oh my God, my psoriasis is completely gone. Oh my gosh, my pain is so much better. I'm off of Oxy because of this. I'm off of my inhalers. I'm off of the biologics with rheumatoid arthritis. It helped with chemotherapy. It took away my side effects with chemotherapy, and I healed so much faster from my cancer treatments. It's gonna be people sharing their stories, I believe, that's going to tip the scale in the favor of just letting people know this is safer than aspirin. You're good. You're good. It's not going to hurt you. You don't have to get high from this.
That we're 100% in line with that, and telling those stories is so important.
It really is.
Even today for us in the business that we're in, there's not a day that goes by that we don't get a half a dozen stories of one type or another. Mostly we get them through email and online, and they also serve to remind us of how important it is. Because when you get the effort of a business and trying to be compliant and grow and pay the bills and stuff, sometimes you lose sight of what's going on and the reality of what it was. So really, those stories, not only do they help convert people and awaken them to the potential of what's happening here, but it also allows us within the industry to continue to feed ourselves and get strong.
Yeah, because it is a difficult business. It is completely, when you have an industry that is facing prosecution on one level, but on the other level saving people's lives or benefiting their health in ways that they have not been able to experience any other way, it is emotionally draining sometimes. And just to be able to hear those stories to remind you why you're doing what you're doing is it really is a benefit to the people in the industry. So anyone that's using products out there, make sure you remind the people that you're getting it from how it's helping you so that they can remember it, feel that in their soul why they're doing what they're doing, and hopefully come up with even bigger and better things for you. So, well, how'd you get into the industry, by the way?
So in 2010, actually, my wife and I came down to California from Alaska in 2010. We were involved with a large financial services company, and we had a big market share in California that we were responsible for. And worked here for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then one day, I kind of ramped up to it. We realized I was on the wrong bus, and it was time for me to make a change. And we made that that transition at that time, and really kind of stepped off into the ether, because it's not like we were ready to go into the cannabis space. That wasn't the plan at the time. The plan was to get off the bus and figure out what I was going to do next. And ultimately, we decided, after talking to some folks here in Bakersfield, that we wanted to get involved in the medicinal marijuana space. And we thought that we were going to open up a collective here in Bakersfield. We went to a little educational program here in California, and to learn how to do that, and kind of got scared off of the idea of doing that. And instead of going for the storefront or the dispensary, we elected to establish a medical marijuana grow. Mm-hmm. We had a couple of collectives, one in particular that was very enthusiastic and says, we will support you in whatever it is that you want to do. Just whatever brings quality products. So we sourced our genetics, and we wound up focusing a lot on genetics that contain high amounts of CBD. Mm-hmm. So to be medicinal, we didn't, now I'm an equal opportunity cannabis user, and but what we were focusing on was the medicinal benefit. That was our extreme focus. So CBD was very important to us. After a couple cycles in the grow, we elected to transition away from the cultivation piece and focus on the extraction and infusion piece. Mm-hmm. We really started getting down and dirty with the CBD and learning how to do our own extractions, and we began developing a line of products out of that. And from there, Cannariginals was born, and the Human 420 Essentials line of products. entered the California market in 2012. I believe it was.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And so and it's myself, it's my wife, and our son that teed this whole thing off, and we built Cannariginals into a real. It's just got an amazing following in California, close to 700 storefronts that are offering that product. And so again, our sourcing for stories and anecdotal support is huge across the hundreds of thousands of pieces that we've put out into the state of California for the last 5-6 years.
And how many locations are you currently in?
It changes day to day, and you know how the cannabis space is, because shops open and close, but it's somewhere between 650 and 700 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, at one point we were up to 750 locations, and matter of fact, Brightfield Media Group put out a report at one point showing us what 32% of California's topical market, and that was about 6 months ago when that report came out. And so now we've reached a point where people are coming to us and they're like, we will travel hundreds of miles to find your products, and it's meaningful to our families, and it's hard to imagine a time when that opportunity isn't there for them.
And what's sticks out in my mind is that you're helping so many people without the benefit of being able to use the banking that other businesses are able to do, or even ship things like other businesses are able to do. Once legalization or descheduling occurs, I can't even imagine the number of people that you're going to be able to reach.
We feel the same way, and it's just so the descheduling, I think that's the key word, right? A lot about rescheduling.
No, I want descheduling. Don't be scheduling it at all. Ginseng isn't scheduled, so just,
Tell you what, this Schedule 2 thing that people talk about scares us where we did not need to be. This is not only that we still have the same problems that we have today, but you also now have the FDA involved. It's no longer just the DEA that's trying to push people around out here. So yeah, that brings a whole different level of scrutiny. But yeah, so descheduling, and through descheduling, you're right, we could see a huge difference in the market that we could reach. We actually, talking about CBD, we actually developed a couple of other lines. We were really hung up on the entourage effect for years, and we were all about the full extract cannabis oils that we were creating ourselves. And I had a couple of companies that had 99.5% pure hemps, the isolates that they wanted us to try, at least to trial with some of our products, and I resisted for a little. And then finally, one guy made us a nice little donation. We brought it in because we had a population group that we were trying to touch. And that is a community that, if you don't mind, I'll throw this out there. It's a community that deals with a condition called Epidermolysis, bullosa, EB for short. It's a rare condition. Another term they use for these children is butterfly children. They have a genetic issue resulting in a lack. Issues are all incredibly delicate. And probably you've seen videos, or the people that are listening to this podcast will be aware, if they've paid any attention to these children who look like they're coming out of a third-degree burn state, actually, and there's no treatment and there's no cure. What we have found, though, is that these products, when they're applied appropriately, they help these wounds heal up a little better. They help manage their pain in a way that it keeps them off of it. They probably make less than 0.5%, if that, of our business. And so we took in this hemp-based CBD with the idea that maybe we could create a product that could help them actually ship. And we ran some beta batches and got a hold of some folks that we had relationships with in the States who were suffering from the condition, and sent it out to them. And sure enough, they came back and told us that listeners that have been there for their entire lives are now starting to heal. this really got us excited. And so we started pushing hard on that brand. And look, I think we're in at least 12 different countries at last count. We're actually authorized now for distribution through a pharmacy in Germany with that product, and getting coast to coast sales every day.
That's
And-
amazing. Your audio's kind of coming in and out, so we're missing some of this.
Uh-oh.
But we got
Trying
the
to get-
gist. So, no, that's
So, yeah.
awesome.
The idea of getting a reach out there is very, very important to us. You know, we know that we've been working in a bubble for these last few years here in California, and there's so many people that are asking almost daily. Again, we're getting requests from people really all over the world asking, how can we get your products out here? And now we finally have come up with an alternative that we can offer them that allows us to ship basically anywhere we want.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. And I'll have to make sure I tag this podcast with that so that hopefully more people will find out about it.
I really appreciate that, and I know the community that we're such good friends with now will appreciate it as well. These folks that we're talking about, the butterfly children, exist in every community. You just don't know they're there.
Yeah.
You know, here, 12 to 15 people in Bakersfield alone, and if you weren't aware of them, you would not know that they're in your neighborhood.
You know, there are a lot of us with rare genetic diseases or genetic defects that people would never know. You know?
Never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the sad part is that people, even with these defects or diseases, and I say defect because I have nail patella syndrome, so I have a mutated gene. Even though they go through whatever they're going through with their condition, the fact that some of them are still afraid to try something as simple as CBD that can benefit them, we know with the butterfly children, we know it benefits in the majority of cases because it's been used and lots of people are getting benefit from it. But there are people who are still so afraid to even try it because they have this notion in their head that, you know, somehow it's going to eat their brains or something. I don't know. But so what is it that we need to do to let people know this is safe stuff?
Yeah. You know, we need to be loud. And Don, you're doing exactly what it is we need to do. There's people like you and this podcast that will help people understand what's going on with these compounds, with these plants, these herbs, right? And 100%, this is safe stuff, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever died. Nobody's ever been injured from cannabis unless a bell of it fell off of the truck and hit them in the head.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. So, you know, one story at a time is how we get there. And, you know, these products that we're talking about, and especially when you start talking about CBD-based products, we have our youngest client, I will say, customer that I'm aware of was about 8 weeks old.
Yeah.
This is a child that had developed eczema over her entire body.
Oh, poor baby. And that's okay. I hear your dogs. Dogs like CBD too. Just shout out to the dogs.
They have to say hello to the construction guy. Told you we had a project going on. So, and you're absolutely right, though, right? The dogs, the CBD. We have not as many as we have with humans, but we get a fair amount of feedback saying that my dog either is old and immobile, has hip dysplasia, has anxiety issues.
Mm-hmm.
Drops of a CBD heavy tincture is enough to give them their mobility back.
Exactly.
Allow them to calm down and accept the environment, that whatever's going on. And we've seen that with our own dogs when we're dealing days like New Year's Eve and 4th of July when it gets loud out here.
Oh, yeah.
And a few drops on a biscuit before the activities actually get going, and the dogs are fine. And it's not like they go off and go to sleep in the corner. They're active. They're moving around. They're just not scared.
Exactly. And when I get the tincture bottle out, our dog starts wagging his tail. He's like, "Oh, Mommy's got a treat.
We did that a lot. We did that a lot. I love that.
And the cats actually will lick it off the dropper. They had their own because it's just like, that's kind of gross. But.
So, you know, we here in Bakersfield, I don't know how familiar you are with Bakersfield. It's a very, very conservative community.
Yes.
It's considered the white picket fence of California, without a doubt. We're very proud of that. And we're very proud of the amount of people that we're aware of in Bakersfield who is a part of this community, especially the senior community, who are accepting these types of products. Matter of fact, I had one of my friends that came to me and said my grandmother actually went and picked up her medical marijuana recommendation so that she could go to the collective to buy these products. And he said, Grandma, I know the guy that makes them, and I think I could probably do something, which we would still have to send it to the collective. And she came back to him and said, no. She says, I want to do it right. Right? She says, this is, so I want to get my card. And here she is. She's like 85 years old. She walks in there and gets her creams. She's not going in there to buy flour products and oil. She's going in there to buy her products. And so, again, one story at a time. And the tipping point starts to happen. Eventually, everybody knows somebody who has been affected positively by cannabis.
Well, let's talk about some of the benefits of CBD. Some of the, since you talked about a couple different stories here, let's go a little bit further into that. What can you speak to about CBD and how it's helped some people?
So, I'm going to try to isolate a couple of situations that I can talk about. Situations that are helped by these compounds. That when we start talking broad spectrum about everything.
Oh, Gary, your audio is kind of.
Okay, let me try this. Is this better, Don?
Let's go with that. Yeah.
My apologies.
Oh, it's all good. We just don't want to miss any of this.
I appreciate it. So yeah, when we start talking about the broad spectrum of situations that these products help, and we really get into it, we start to sound a little crazy, honestly, because I can honestly say that probably 95% of the conditions we run into are benefited from a CBD compound of some type. Now, I say that because we not only work with the rubs and the topicals, we do the tinctures, we also create suppositories, and we have CBD infused bath crystals as well. So there's a lot of different things that we put out there.
I just want to give a shout out really quick to the bath crystals. A lot of people don't even think about it, but let's remember you have CB2 receptors in your skin, all over your body. There are people with rheumatoid arthritis. There are children with epilepsy. There are people with skin conditions that can benefit like crazy from that. And not a lot of people think, oh, bath crystals, la-di-da. No. This can help you. Soak in CBD.
Very good point. So let's just go there. And from there, I'll spin off onto a condition I'll share with you. So the bath crystals that we created. So as you know, Don, we use emu oil as a delivery vector for our CBD. This is a part of our compound that is very, very important to us. And so by placing these into the bath crystals, the infused emu oil, what happens is we create a layer of oil on top of the tub, on top of the water. And when a person lowers themselves into that water, that oil that is on top of the water tends to wrap itself around your body as you go in.
Beautiful.
And so this is the concepts, and this is why, and again, we use emu oil as a transdermal delivery, right? And so transdermal, it goes all the way through the skin and into the tissues below. I'll tell you a story about a child that we've been dealing with. Actually, he's probably about 15 years old now, but when we met him, he was 10 years old. He has epidermolysis bullosa. He's one of our butterfly children. And his mom is telling us that one of the hardest times for them is when he has to get into the bathtub. But you can imagine how bad it hurts to get into a tub when you have a bad sunburn. You can take that to an exponential level when you're talking about somebody who has got open wounds on a large part of their body and blisters and it's painful. So they live with a life of a lot of bandages, and even taking the bandages off to get in the tub is a difficult, painful, and situation. It's a daily thing that they deal with. So we put these together, we sent it to the family, and that 10-year-old actually wrote us a testimonial letter.
Oh.
Yep. He come back and told us for the first time, or his mom told us that when he went into the tub, he had zero pain. The dead skin exfoliated on its own, and the bandages that are stuck to his body that they normally have to be very delicate to pull off, released on their own. And she told us at the end of the bath, they actually had to coax him out of the bath. And this was a child who, she said, normally when he would go into the bathtub, he would go into convulsions. His body would shake as if he was in seizure. And so that's an example of how these types of products can help somebody with generalized conditions versus localized conditions. And so you nailed it on the head, Don, when you start talking about things like autoimmune conditions and arthritis and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. All of these types of conditions that are maybe difficult to manage, that tend to affect large portions of the body. And maybe in the instance of fibromyalgia, you can't even touch it to apply. This would be a great way to apply a CBD product and do it in a non-invasive way that is gentle but effective. Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Sorry, I had to show, some people are going to see me pointing or talking to someone up to the side. You know, CBD people want their CBD when they want their CBD. It doesn't matter what time the office opens. So,
Agreed.
So, excuse me for that, but you know, okay. So this gets me on a soapbox that I'm on a lot of times. People need to know this. People need to hear those stories about how difficult it is to even take a bath for a 10-year-old child who, for 10 years of his life, that's been a ridiculously traumatic experience. And when they... So, when people are voting in certain, in certain states, some states are doing it with votes, some states like Vermont's just saying, we're just going to do this. And unfortunately, we have some friends in Congress that are trying to just get this taken care of right away for us. But I want people that are voting against cannabis to think really freaking hard about what their vote just did. You just basically told this 10-year-old child, who's now 15 and doing much better, right? You told that 10-year-old child, I don't care about your pain. I think that this is a bad plant. And so you don't get it. I don't care that you have spent 10 years of your life convulsing when you get into the bath because the pain is so extreme. How can people not see this? How can they just condemn a child to a life of freaking misery with open sores on their body when there is a plant extract that can take away the pain? I mean, for the love of God, people, please.
It's just a huge deal, We and Don, 100% with you. These stories, they need to be told. It's hard to be loud, and again, you're providing a voice for us to do that as well. I would like to add to that real quick. We spoke to that child's nurse. About 2 years after we met the family, we talked to the nurse. This child's treated at a large children's hospital up in Northern California. She told us that one day he came walking in for his appointment. And again, they've been treating him since the day he was born. And she said it was like a whole new child walked into the clinic. And he was laughing and carrying on. And she talked to his dad. She goes, "What's going on with your son? He is doing awesome." And he says, "You know what? This is what's going on." And he pulled out these products and he said, "This is the only thing that's ever helped."
Yeah.
And she said it was like a complete different individual that walked in. If I could, Don, I'd like to share one more
Yes,
anecdote.
please.
So this involves a sublingual drops tinctures that we make, right? CBD enriched tinctures. And one of our colleagues on the East Coast was telling us about his son, who's 26 years old. And when he was an infant and he went in for his second set of booster shots, he had a cold. And they asked the physician whether or not he should take the shots, even though he's sick, because they've heard it could cause issues. And the physician assured them that he would be fine.
No, no.
He took the shots. It was the DPT shot that he took. And that evening, his infant went into convulsions. Now, 26 years later, he operates at the level of a 2-year-old. His 26-year-old son is completely dependent upon his parents for everything. And so he comes to me, John comes to me and he says, "So Gary," he said, we started giving our son these drops about 3 weeks ago." And he said, "My son, for the first time, is looking at me and connecting with me." He says, "In 26 years, or since the day he went into convulsions, we've never had a connection." And he said, "For the first time we have." And I'll tell you something, as a father myself, to hear that from somebody is just, it sounds very benign, but on the big level of a family connection coming back together because of things like this, to me, it's huge.
Well, yeah, that's amazing. The gifts that his family has received
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
just
So
beautiful.
yeah, and we talk about third-degree burns, and we talk about multiple sclerosis, which, by the way, we see home runs with constantly.
Oh, yes.
And autism and different spectral disorders that are affected by these products. And so that's when we start sounding a little crazy, because it's like, well, what does it work for? He says, well, it works for almost everything.
And it's because the endocannabinoid system.
Absolutely.
And
Brings the body back into harmony and where it's supposed to be, and people just, they're starting to understand. About a year ago, Don, I heard a thing on another podcast. They were talking about, this is the year of awakening. Things are happening, and things are happening, and we're opening our eyes to the issues with opioids, and no longer under the carpet and acting like it's not a problem and it only affects people who are,
degenerates.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Not true. And a lot of times these people that they think are degenerates are regular good people who got themselves in a bad situation because the system only provided that for them.
Yeah. I know my mother is 77 years old, and she has spinal stenosis plus the nail patella syndrome. And so there's a lot of pain involved. And she's been going to pain doctors for, God, literally for decades. And they would do the epidurals, and they would, the shots in the neck and the, things like that. And she the last time she had one of those procedures, she actually stopped breathing, and they had to do CPR to revive her. And she said, "Okay, never again. I'm not going to have that procedure again." And so then they're like, "Okay, well, we'll do, get you on the oxy and the what's that? The thing that everyone's dying from now? Those patches, the fentanyl." So about a year ago, I started. She's in Tennessee, so she's in a non-legal state. Although they have now, just this week, I believe, one of the state senators has submitted something, so hopefully something's moving forward in Tennessee. So we got her on the CBD because all these pain medications were also causing seizures. So then she's on 3 seizure medicines plus all that. So now she's, I think she's down to one seizure medicine. She's off the oxy, and the fentanyl. I think she's at like every 4 or 5 days now instead of every day. So little by little, we're getting her off of that. This is a woman who worked with, I mean, for decades, and all she did was go to a doctor and say, you know, a pain specialist, and say, I'm in pain. You know, make it stop so that I can have a quality of life. So I'm not just in bed in a fetal position all day. And that's what they gave her. And I'm waiting for them to become a full legal state so that she can also add some THC, which will take her off the rest of that. I mean, she'll be good to go without all the side effects. And
Absolutely.
it's disgusting that if she tests positive for THC, they will cut her off. They will fire her as a patient.
Yeah.
They can create the problem, but heaven forbid you find a solution to it.
Heaven forbid. I agree with you, Don. You know, I read a lot of things online. I follow some online groups that deal with you know, cannabis as medicine, just to kind of stay in tune with what's going on out there. And it's amazing what you hear that people are putting out there, so much misinformation, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's an expert. I kind of keep my mouth shut in those things, because anytime you add something that's meaningful, the trolls attack, and it's just all lost in the dark. Kind of monitor what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear a lot of things from so-called professionals who come on and say, you know, yeah, CBD and THC will help with like light pain, or if you have like light issues, that then it'll help, but it won't help with deep pain. It won't help with serious chronic pain. And that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
So truth. And you know, and as I'm sure it's probably been mentioned on this show 100 times, or you've had conversations, that people are dropping their opiates and they're dropping their serious painkillers,
Yeah.
and they're finding better relief with cannabis-based products.
Exactly.
And yeah,
And
we're
here's
seeing,
the thing: try it. Just try it. You know?
give it a shot.
Yeah. What's the worst
Now,
thing? It doesn't happen. Oh, well, bummer. You know. So,
the funnest folks for us to introduce these types of products to are the hard naysayers.
mm-hmm.
Because now I understand nocebo, placebo. Okay, there are effects that we can drive with our thoughts and our beliefs and our expectations. However, over and over again, we have folks that will come in, and I remember one individual specifically. I was visiting a friend, and this guy's about my age. He's got a bad back, and he's complaining about how his back hurts, and they're on Norcos, and he's got all these other stuff that he's doing for his pain. And my friend says, "Do you think this will help him?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know, we talked about it." He like, "Poo-poo, there's no way. You have no idea. I'm way beyond all that." And he lifted up his shirt. And he showed me his back, and he had a couple of like 5-inch scars going parallel like train tracks up his spine, where they had done surgery on his lower lumbar area. And he said, "See, I'm just way past it." And I just kind of stayed on him. And finally, I think I pissed him off. And his friend was sitting there, and he had my product. Now, his friend already used it on his knee, and he was like, "Wow, that's pretty amazing."
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy backs up to him, and he says, "Here." He lifts his shirt, and he goes, "Put a little bit right there, just right there." And his friend says, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "I'm going to shut this guy up." He took a little dab of that cream, and he put it on his back, and he rubbed it like 4 or 5 times in a circle. And the guy stepped away and said, "Thank you." And he dropped his shirt. He looks at me. He says, "Are you happy?" And I said, "Well, I feel better." I says, "I hope you do. We'll see." And he kind of stepped off into the shadow, and he was over there drinking a beer. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, he threw out an expletive that I'm not gonna. I looked over at him. I'm like, "Oh, Don," I said, "Did you find that, or did it find you?" And he goes, "You know what?" He says, "I'm blown away."
Yeah.
He says, he says, "I don't know if you're fooling me, or if you kind of got in my head." He says, "But I'm going to try something." He stepped aside, he put that beer down, and he started bending over. He didn't fully touch his hands on the ground, but he started bending over. He started his leg to the top of his feet. He says, "I can't believe it." He says, I'm really blown away." So repeatedly, when we run into people who do not believe that these types of products can help them,
Mm-hmm.
it's so dramatic.
Yeah.
They can't believe it, you know,
And these
because they
people
really.
have been in pain for so long. They've been in play
Absolutely.
for so many years. And
Yeah.
a little dab will do you.
That'll
Just
do
a
ya.
little
Yeah.
bit of cream. Just put a little on there.
So one story at a time, we're getting it out there, and letting them know that there's a lot of good can come out of this. And I keep saying, just because it's enjoyable doesn't make it evil. Now, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so if there was one thing that you wanted to make sure people really heard, what would that be?
I would encourage everybody to stay open-minded to possibility. Not only because it allows them to expand for themselves and to potentially be for themselves, but by staying open-minded to possibility, you don't take away from others who need found working with the cannabis medicine products. It's when other people get closed-minded and they start to pass judgment and they start to assume certain things about people. That's when people begin to suffer. But an open-minded community will at least allow the development of these products and these medicines.
Oh, we're losing the audio again.
Oh, you're losing me.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Let's try this again. So staying open-minded just allows things to develop and allows the conversation to continue, and it keeps the stigma out of it. And honestly, that stigma is what has allowed cannabis to be demonized and allowed the pharmaceutical companies to become as powerful as they have in our daily life.
Absolutely true.
I think that's what I would hope. Let's allow this thing to develop and do it with an open mind and see where we go.
Well, I think that is probably the best idea or the best thing that we can do, and not just in the States, but worldwide. After having that conversation with Clifton the other day, it just proves even more to me that this is something that can help a lot of people, and there's really no reason for us to be afraid of it. And so I hope that you keep sharing your stories, and I know you will, and that the cantankerous people that finally give in and try your products will share their stories with their friends. And like you said, one story at a time. Let's get this going. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Gary. We truly appreciate your time, and we'll make sure we get you on another time as well. And I hope that the California counties and cities start going your way, and soon you'll be shipping your stuff, all of your products worldwide instead of just the CBD ones.
Yeah, we're getting there, Don, one day at a time and one story at a time. And again, we really, really appreciate you providing a voice to allow us to put those stories out there as well and talk about what's important to us. So thank you. Okay,
and everyone, Cannariginals.com. And in the show notes, I'll put the link in there. I'll also put the link to Theramu. Is that how you spell it? The emu?
Yeah, that's a play on words. Theramu, THERAM as in Michael, U.com. Mm-hmm. We also brand, I might as well throw a shameful post out there for APONICBD.com. Mm-hmm. That's APONICBD.
APONICBD. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so those are the Theramu and Aponi are the two hemp-based programs, and then we have Cannariginals for our California market currently. Okay,
so everybody check the show notes. There will be live links in there that you can just click on and go straight to their site. And thanks again, and everybody, we will see you on the next episode. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.